What would you do if the burden of an entire age rested in your trembling hands, gleaming and cold, whispering of power, promising salvation, yet offering only doom? The tale of Isildur, the Ring Taker, begins not with triumph, but with the hush that follows it. The still air after Sauron's fall, thick with smoke and sorrow. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until your own heartbeat sounds like a drum of warning. You stand with him upon the blackened slopes of Orodruin, the air scorched and tasting of metal, ash settling upon his armor like snowfall. The one ring glints faintly in his palm, and for a fleeting moment, he imagines he can master it. After all, hadn't he cut it from the hand of the Dark Lord himself? You probably wouldn't survive this. Not the temptation, not the slow poison of triumph. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm really curious, from which part of the world are you watching this video? Write your country in the comments. Let's see how far this little story has traveled. The ring hums softly in the heat, almost alive, and in that hum lies a curse that will stretch across generations. A shadow passed from father to son, from king to ghost. You can almost hear the river sighing in the distance, the Anduin waiting patiently for the weight that will one day sink beneath its surface. The elves warned him, of course. They always do. But men seldom listen when their pride is still ringing like steel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk now beside the slow, wide breath of the Anduin, its waters tinted gold by a weary sun and heavy with secrets that refuse to sink. You can almost see Isildur's reflection wavering there, proud, noble, and already haunted, his fingers absently tracing the chain where the ring hangs, glimmering faintly like a sleeping ember. He tells himself it is a token of victory, a symbol of his lineage. Yet even the reeds along the riverbank seem to whisper otherwise. Somewhere in the distance, a gull cries, and for a heartbeat you might mistake it for the ring laughing. Isildur cannot hear that sound, or perhaps he pretends not to. He writes letters to his sons, earnest words about rebuilding Arnor and healing the lands, but in the flicker of torchlight, his quill trembles. It's said that Elrond himself urged him to cast the ring into the fire. Standing there beside the cracks of doom, his eyes fierce with foresight. Some scholars argue that Elrond foresaw not only the fall of Númenor's line but the long defeat of men. Others say fate simply turned its wheel, indifferent as stone. Among the Dunedain there lingers an old belief that water remembers sorrow, and so the Anduin has never run clear since that day. Perhaps that's why fish avoid this stretch of river. Even they fear what glimmers beneath. You can feel the weight of that myth as you walk, the kind that settles into the bones of history until no one remembers where truth ends and legend begins. Still, Isildur smiles when the wind brushes his cloak, as if the world itself approves his defiance. He cannot see what we do, that the ring's glow has deepened slightly, its warmth no longer comforting but possessive, like a gaze that does not blink. In the quiet, you sense it too. The curse has begun to breathe. Mist clings to your boots as you tread through the gladdened fields, where reeds sway like tired sentinels and dragonflies dart above pools that gleam with deceptive calm. Isildur marches at the head of his company, his armor dulled by travel, but his spirit still burning with the stubborn pride of Númenor. He carries scrolls and relics bound for Númenor, yet one treasure rides closest to his heart, the ring, hidden beneath his tunic, warm as blood and whispering in his dreams. The soldiers joke to lighten the mood, teasing their king for polishing that plain band more than his sword. One claims it might be a betrothal ring, and the laughter ripples softly through the mist. 3 lore-appropriate jokes, and none of them can chase away the unease that hangs between breaths. Some say Gandalf, far away, later read of this doomed journey and pondered whether destiny can be rewritten or only postponed. Others argue that Isildur's fate was sealed the moment he ignored Elrond's plea. The lore keepers of Rivendell still debate it, a tragic echo that scholars love to argue by candlelight, sipping Mirrivor and sighing at the folly of men. Among old dwarves there's a forgotten superstition. Never wear a ring while crossing marshland, for the earth may grow jealous and drag you down. You can almost believe it now, hearing the sucking of mud at every step, the Anduin's far-off murmur deepening like a drumbeat. A flock of herons takes flight suddenly, startling even the king, and for a moment the soldiers clutch their spears, hearts quickened. Isildur laughs, too loudly perhaps, and the sound seems to mock itself before the wind carries it away. The ring hums again against his chest, and the world holds its breath. The river ahead gleams like a blade, and you can feel history lean forward, waiting. The morning breaks pale and thin, spilling mist across the gladdened fields like a forgotten memory. And you walk with Isildur as his company moves along the marshy plain, the rhythm of their steps softened by mud, the air carrying the wet scent of earth and rot. The ring weighs heavier today, though it looks no larger than a coin. That small, deceitful circle glimmering faintly beneath the folds of his cloak. It has grown warm again, pulsing faintly with a heartbeat that is not his, whispering in a tongue too ancient for thought, but too insistent for silence. You watch as the sun lifts through gauzy veils of vapor, gilding every reed with gold, and for a moment the world feels still, almost holy, until the first arrow falls. It comes whistling from the east, followed by a chorus of shrieks that break the peace like shattered glass. Orcs, remnants of Sauron's fleeing hosts, surge from the shadows of the hills, their blades crude, their eyes filled with old vengeance. The Dunedain form ranks swiftly, shields locking, voices steady, but you can feel the doom in the air, thick and certain as the coming rain. Isildur shouts commands, his voice clear, proud, the voice of a king who still believes he can shape his destiny. The soldiers fight fiercely, their swords singing, their banners snapping like birds in flight. But for every orc that falls, two more rise, and the marsh drinks greedily of their blood. A spear grazes Isildur's arm, another tears the edge of his cloak, and his men cry for him to flee, to save the heir of Elendil, to preserve what remains of Númenor's light. But he cannot abandon them, not yet. The ring, though, whispers otherwise. Slip it on, it murmurs, smooth and sweet, and no enemy shall touch you. There is a strange humor in that, if you think about it, how men always take advice from the very thing that will ruin them. Somewhere in the chaos, an arrow strikes his guard through the throat, and the man collapses without a sound. Isildur's hands shake, his breath quickens, and he feels the ring's call like a song too beautiful to resist. Some elven chroniclers claim that in that moment he hesitated, that he looked toward the north and thought of his sons waiting in Arnor, of the white tree that still grew in his courtyard, of his father's broken sword reforged in dreams yet to come. Others insist there was no thought at all, only fear and instinct. Whatever truth lies between, you see him slide the ring onto his finger, and in that heartbeat, the world forgets him. The orcs shout in confusion as he vanishes, their arrows darting through empty air. Isildur stumbles backward, breathing hard, invisible, the marsh swallowing his footfalls. The ring is triumphant. You can feel its pulse racing with satisfaction, but its protection is not mercy, it is ownership. He runs, heart pounding, across the slick banks, the reeds whipping his face, the world blurring into light and panic. The Anduin waits ahead, wide and cold and merciless, and without thinking he plunges in. The shock of the water nearly steals his breath. It is glacial, clinging, alive. He kicks, thrashes, desperate, the current seizing him like a living thing. Behind him the orcs scream, loosing volley after volley into the silver flood. He laughs, a wild, hopeless sound, for even now he believes he will escape. But fate, ever patient, closes its hand. The ring burns suddenly against his flesh, hotter than any forge, and in his agony he gasps, the cursed gold slipping free of his finger, spinning once through the air like a dying star before sinking into the dark. In that instant, the cloak of invisibility shatters, and the arrows find him. They pierce his back, his shoulder, his pride. The king who once defied Sauron falls beneath the reeds, his final breath carried downstream. The Anduin swallows him without judgment. Some say the river mourned, others claim it rejoiced, cleansing itself of his defiance. The elves write that Ulmo himself bore witness, the Lord of Waters sighing at yet another man undone by his own desire. There is a joke told in Rivendell, quiet and melancholy, that Isildur became the only king to crown himself with mud. Even the dwarves, when they speak of him, shake their heads and mutter that no forge can temper a heart too proud to cool. The ring, meanwhile, sleeps. It drifts slowly through silt and shadow, catching bits of starlight that never reach the surface. Centuries will pass, kingdoms will rise and fall, and still it will wait, patient, unhurried, as though it knows time itself bends around it. When you kneel by the Anduin now, centuries later, you can almost see a flicker beneath the water, a golden glint too deliberate to be chance. And if you listen closely, perhaps you'll hear the faintest echo of laughter. Not cruel, not kind, but knowing. The laughter of something that has never once lost a game. The river keeps its counsel. Seasons fold and unfold across the gladdened fields, and the spot where Isildur fell becomes no more than a ripple in memory, a patch of reeds that hum quietly in the wind. You walk there now, centuries later, and the land feels neither cursed nor blessed, only waiting. Beneath the mud and cold silt, the ring sleeps, nestled among pebbles and roots, its gold still unblemished by time, for time does not touch such things. The world above changes, snowmelt fills the gullies, new kings rise, languages shift like river currents, and even the stars seem to drift a little farther apart, yet still it waits. There's a sort of cosmic joke in that, a relic of immense power left to languish under fish and fungus, ignored by all save the occasional curious eel. The lore keepers of Gondor wrote songs of Isildur's fall, some mournful, some defiant, but none could name what became of the ring, and scholars even in Rivendell grew weary of the debate. One elvish historian argued that perhaps Ulmo took pity and hid it forever beneath his domain. Another insisted that the ring was no mere object but a will disguised in gold, searching for the right pair of hands to mar its perfection again. You listen to these theories as though hearing voices carried on fog, half belief, half dream, and you begin to understand why the elves call the First Age the time of remembering, and the later ones merely the time of forgetting. 1,000 years pass, and moss swallows stones where battles were fought. The kingdoms of men stretch and then crumble, rebuilt on the bones of stories half true. The dwarves whisper of treasure hidden by the river but never dare seek it. For in Khazad-dûm there lingers an old superstition that water-holding gold is water haunted by greed itself. The ring hears everything, or so it would seem if you could listen as it does. The deep hum of the earth, the shifting of roots, the distant thunder of storms that break mountains and mend valleys. It does not sleep in the way mortals do. It waits in the manner of mountains, still yet entirely awake. Sometimes, on nights when the moon rises thin and white, a trout passes close enough to disturb the silt, and a single glint of light escapes into the world. One blink of gold in an ocean of darkness. Travelers tell tales of strange glimmers beneath the reeds, and children in nearby villages dare each other to swim in the cursed pools, laughing until one of them swears he felt something watching from below. You can almost hear the ring's laughter in that, faint as a ripple, amused by its own patience. Generations die, languages turn to dust, and the chronicles of Isildur's line fade into legend. Gondor's walls crumble. Arnor becomes a ghost kingdom scattered with towers that whistle in the wind, and Elrond's halls grow quieter each passing century. Yet still the ring rests. It does not yearn or fear. It simply waits for the world to bend once more toward folly. The joke that scholars tell, half in jest, half in dread, is that the ring has a better memory than men ever will. Some say Gandalf knew of its survival long before he admitted it, sensing its slumber in the trembling of the earth after storms. Others insist even he was deceived, that the ring hid its pulse from all eyes, biding its time until the river's course would bring it near mortal curiosity again. You kneel on the bank, brushing frost from the grass, and think of how small a thing can hold such ruin inside it. The silence here feels thicker than sleep, the kind that muffles even your thoughts. If you drop a pebble into the water, it sinks slowly, spiraling through centuries of secrets, vanishing into blackness without a sound. Somewhere below, the ring stirs, not awake, not yet, but aware. Its story is far from over. It only paused to listen for footsteps. And as the night settles over the valley, as starlight spills into the river like shards of old glass, you begin to feel that faint pull in your chest, that whisper older than words, reminding you that even the most cursed legacies are never truly lost, only waiting to be found. A bright morning breaks upon the Anduin after long centuries of quiet, the kind of day that seems far too ordinary to carry the echo of destiny. The mists have thinned, the reeds sway lazily, and the sun scatters its gold across the river's glassy skin. You walk there again, though the world has aged beyond recognition. The kingdoms of old are only names now, whispered in ballads and misremembered prayers, yet the air hums with something waiting, a note long held in silence about to resolve. Two cousins fish near the riverbank, laughing, their lines vanishing into the slow current. Deagol is his name, small and nimble, with hands that love both coins and the gleam of water. Beside him sits Smeagol, his smile quick and hungry, his curiosity sharper than any hook. It is on this day, so bright and harmless, that the ring decides to rise. Deagol's line jerks, dragging his arms forward, and he tumbles with a splash into the deep, the world above dissolving into the muffled blue of river shadow. He sees it there. A faint glimmer in the mud, not sunlight, not fish scale, but something purer and more dangerous than either. His fingers close around the gold band, and the instant his skin touches it, you can feel the pulse awaken. The ring has chosen to be found again, though choice may be too kind a word. It has drifted long enough and now hungers for the warmth of mortal folly once more. Deagol surfaces gasping, clutching his treasure, laughing in disbelief, calling out to Smeagol that fortune itself has smiled upon them. Smeagol's laughter fades when he sees the gleam, not for envy alone, but for the recognition that this thing was meant for him, or so he believes. "Give it to me, Deagol, my birthday gift," he says, and you hear the first shadow fall over the day. The struggle that follows is brief, silent, but for the rush of water and a few muffled cries, and when it ends, only one figure stands on the bank, trembling. Smeagol stares at the ring in his palm, and though he tries to smile, the joy never reaches his eyes. There is a cruel irony in how the curse passes, not by war or prophecy, but by a small quarrel beside a quiet stream. In Rivendell, centuries later, Elrond will speak of this moment with weary sorrow, claiming that the ring always finds the hand most willing to forget its own reflection. Other scholars disagree, suggesting it found the hand most like its makers, lonely, secretive, ruled by whispers. The dwarves, when they hear the tale, will mutter their own proverb, "Gold calls to gold, even when it sleeps." And in that, there is truth, for Smeagol's love for it is instantaneous and terrible. He hides it close, names it precious, and the word, innocent at first, begins to change him. You watch him shrink from daylight, slink into burrows, muttering to himself, until the very tone of his voice splits into two. One half pleads, the other mocks. One half mourns what he was, the other delights in what he has become. Elvish lore speaks of such fractures. They call it Fea Thael, the shadow soul, a condition said to arise when one's spirit wrestles with itself too long in darkness. You see it now, played out in this small, sad creature beneath the misty mountains, hiding from the sun, hissing at the world, cradling his golden secret like a dying flame. He forgets faces, names, and time. Centuries pass while he mutters to fish and echoes. Some say Gandalf foresaw his coming corruption, that he once told Aragorn, "Pity will rule this creature's fate more than justice ever could." Others insist that even the wise underestimated the ring's cruelty, for it did not merely enslave Smeagol, it remade him, shaping his body to mirror his soul's contortions. And yet, in the dim light of his cave, there are moments, fleeting, fragile, when Gollum, as he is now called, hums to himself lullabies from a world long gone. soft as dripping water. You might almost feel sorry for him then, though pity is a dangerous thing here. The ring sits silently beside him, patient as always, biding its time until another world above grows restless. It remembers kings and battles and fire, but it has learned to love waiting most of all. And as the wind sighs through the mountains above, carrying the forgotten scent of river reeds and long-vanished laughter, the curse of Isildur continues, small, invisible, unstoppable, crawling ever onward through the veins of Middle-earth. You follow Bilbo now, out from the dripping dark of Gollum's cave into the clear, perilous light of the wider world, where the air smells of pine and thunder, and adventure still clings to his cloak like the scent of smoke. He holds the ring tightly in his pocket, fingering it without thinking, not yet realizing what it is, only that it feels strangely alive. You can sense its quiet amusement. It has chosen another keeper, one small, unassuming, and perfect for hiding. It delights in irony, this golden serpent of fate, a power forged for domination, now reduced to the toy of a hobbit. The dwarves traveling with Bilbo pay no heed, for who would suspect that the end of an age rests inside so humble a pocket? Yet already the ring begins its work, wrapping itself around Bilbo's mind in silk threads of justification. Only when needed, he tells himself, slipping it on in moments of fear, vanishing like a rumor, and each time he finds it harder to take off. There's humor in his rationalizing, the kind that makes even the wise shake their heads. He claims it's useful for avoiding trolls, spiders, and awkward conversations alike. Some say Gandalf saw the truth early, that he suspected the trinket Bilbo called his magic ring was no child's bauble, but the echo of Sauron's will. Others insist the wizard's patience was a test, allowing the truth to reveal itself when the world was ready. In Rivendell, scholars debate this endlessly over wine, one wryly noting that even the wise sometimes prefer suspense. Meanwhile, Bilbo carries on oblivious, aging slower than his kind should, his heart light, but his eyes growing watchful. He feels the pull to solitude, a whisper that grows louder each year. On his 111st birthday, he jokes that he feels thin, like butter scraped over too much bread, and the laughter it earns sounds genuine, though none notice the way his hand trembles as he pats his pocket. The ring has become part of him, a comfort and a chain. When Gandalf finally presses him to let it go, the calm old hobbit becomes something else entirely. His voice sharp, his face momentarily cruel. "It's mine," he hisses, echoing words spoken by creatures he has never met but whose shadow walks within him. There's a chilling humor in that symmetry. Isildur, Sméagol, and now Bilbo, all linked not by blood but by ownership. The ring knows how to find the same heart in different forms. At last, trembling, Bilbo drops it onto the floor, and it lands with a sound far heavier than gold should make. The moment feels like the turning of an age. He leaves Bag End lighter in body, but haunted in spirit, muttering to himself on the road to Rivendell that he feels both free and bereaved. Gandalf watches him go with eyes that have seen too many circles close and reopen. Among the elves, an old saying surfaces again: no gift from shadow leaves without taking its echo. They whisper that the ring is stirring once more, its will awakening to find a stronger bearer. The dwarves, ever pragmatic, laugh that it's just another cursed heirloom of men that won't stay buried. But the elves know better. They remember the heat of Mount Doom, the cry of Isildur, the long silence that followed. In the Shire, under skies too peaceful for prophecy, the wind carries faintly the sigh of the Anduin, as though the river itself recalls the weight it once held. Frodo listens to Bilbo's stories of dragons and treasure without guessing that one tale, the smallest of them all, will soon become his own. You can almost hear fate turning over in its sleep, stretching its limbs. The curse of the ring has changed hands once again, not through battle or conquest, but through affection and trust, which, in their own way, are far more dangerous. And somewhere deep beneath the misty mountains, Gollum wakes from uneasy dreams, his pale eyes opening in the dark. He feels it immediately. The absence, the theft, the ache of loss. His whisper slithers through the tunnels, one word drawn out like a wound. Baggins. The sound echoes across years and mountains, and the ring, nestled now in a hobbit hole far from all maps, seems almost to purr in satisfaction. It is once again in motion, and Middle-earth, poor patient land, begins to tremble in its sleep. Years slide like river water, carrying the Shire through peaceful ages of gardens and gossip, while far away, the deep wheels of fate grind once more into motion. You walk with Frodo now, heir to Bilbo's odd habits and quieter courage, unaware that every breath he takes hums faintly with the memory of the Anduin. The ring rests in his pocket as it once did in his uncle's, but it feels heavier these days, its warmth almost feverish. Gandalf returns, eyes full of stormlight, and the truth spills at last. This is no lucky trinket, but the Master Ring itself, the weapon that broke the world of the Second Age. Frodo's face pales as though he's swallowed a ghost. There is humor even in that horror. Gandalf sighs that hobbits always find trouble when they least look for it. The fire crackles in Bag End's hearth as he tosses the ring into it, and the elvish inscription flares like a wound. Ash Nazg Durbatuluk. The curse of Isildur breathes again. Among the wise, the debate ignites like sparks across parchment. Some insist that fate has chosen this moment, that the ring re-emerges only when the world is ready for its final test. Others argue it's simple chance, that even the Dark Lord's malice must obey luck from time to time. In the corners of Middle-earth, old shadows stir. The Nazgul ride from Minas Morgul, pale and silent, their cries splitting the night. Even the dwarves in their halls feel the echo, muttering that gold has begun to whisper again. And somewhere in the jagged wilderness, Gollum crawls toward the scent of memory, muttering Baggins with every shuddering breath. Frodo sets out from the Shire with companions who mistake hope for certainty. Sam, with his gardener's loyalty. Merry and Pippin, with laughter sharp enough to cut fear in half. As they journey through wild lands, you can feel the world darken by degrees. Stars wane, forests lean closer, and every river seems to murmur the same word, return. The ring's will grows restless, testing its bearer in small, cruel ways. It slips heavier on Frodo's chain, thrums against his skin like a trapped heartbeat, whispering of rest, of power, of peace, if only he would claim it. You can almost hear it laugh when Boromir speaks of using it for Gondor's salvation. Men never change, it seems to murmur. The lore keepers of the future will argue whether the ring has a mind of its own or merely magnifies the ones it touches. The elves, who understand corruption as a slow decay of harmony, believe it to be a mirror with malice. It shows you what you most desire, then binds you to the vision. Among men, it's said that Isildur's ghost walks still by the Anduin, warning any who dare claim it, though none listen long enough to learn. Gandalf, grim and weary, tells Frodo that even mercy can be a weapon against evil, and somewhere in that wisdom lies the quiet echo of pity once shown to Gollum. The fellowship forms, 9 against the shadow, and you sense how the air trembles at their first steps eastward, as if the land itself has been holding its breath since the Second Age. Humor lingers, fragile as spring sunlight. Gimli's boasts about beard care amidst peril. Pippin's disastrous curiosity with ancient relics, Legolas politely pretending to enjoy lembas when it tastes like compressed virtue. These small sparks of laughter are all that stand between them and despair. The ring feels every heartbeat, every hesitation, and learns from them. At night, Frodo dreams of water, endless, cold, and glimmering with gold beneath the surface, and wakes clutching his chest, unsure whether it was the Anduin calling or the ring itself whispering, "Remember me." The historians of later ages, poring over Elrond's archives, will call this period the Rekindling, the time when the curse first tasted air again. But in truth, it was never extinguished. It merely waited, wrapped in hobbit innocence. And as the Fellowship passes beneath the misted mountains, You look down upon them from the edge of legend and understand what Elrond meant when he said, "The doom of men and elves alike lies in small hands." The same fate that claimed Isildur now flickers again in the eyes of a creature far humbler, but perhaps wiser. Somewhere, deep under the same mountains, Gollum stirs and sniffs the air, and a grin splits his face. The ring has begun to sing again, and the world, poor, foolish world, listens. The story circles now toward its ending, as all things shaped by the ring must, and you walk beside Frodo in the bitter ash light of Mordor, where the wind smells of iron and sorrow. The land is cracked and weary, its mountains crouched like broken teeth around the fire that once forged the world's undoing. Frodo staggers beneath his burden, each step slower, heavier, as if the ring itself has sunk roots into his bones. You can almost feel its pulse through him, ancient and hungry, whispering of thrones and release, of Isildur's triumph waiting to be reclaimed. Sam trudges at his side, small but unbreakable, muttering half-jokes about second breakfasts, even as his heart breaks. Humor, however faint, keeps despair from swallowing them both. He remarks that Mordor could use a bit of gardening, and for one blessed heartbeat, Frodo almost smiles. But laughter dies quickly here. On the slopes of Mount Doom, fire dances below, like a memory of the ring's birth. The air trembles with the song of destiny fulfilled or defied. Even the shadows seem to watch, waiting to see if history will repeat itself. Frodo reaches the edge, arm raised to cast away the weight of ages, and stops. His hand closes around the gold, and his voice changes. "The ring is mine." The words, soft yet terrible, echo the voice of Isildur, the ghost of every man who believed he could command power without being consumed by it. You hold your breath as the ring glows like a sun caught in shadow, its laughter filling the world. Then Gollum, ragged, pitiful, and perfect in his obsession, lunges. The struggle is wild and brief, two wills bound by the same curse. Gollum triumphs, biting, shrieking, exultant, spinning in mad delight with his precious reclaimed, and in his joy he slips. For once the world acts with poetic timing. He falls into the fire below, clutching his treasure as if love could make flame merciful. The ring melts at last, its song breaking into silence so profound the mountains themselves seem to sigh in relief. Frodo collapses, the weight gone but the echo remaining, like the ghost of pressure after a storm. Some say Eru Ilúvatar himself guided the moment, that Providence rescued Middle-earth from its own folly. Others claim that fate simply tripped over its own shadow and stumbled into mercy. Elves, ever fond of paradox, call it the victory of pity, the weakest weapon proving stronger than any sword. Whatever the truth, you feel the curse unravel through the world. Towers crumble, darkness flees, and the long silence of the west deepens into peace. The Anduin, far away, swells with melted snows and clear light, washing over the place where it once swallowed Isildur. The river seems cleaner now, as though it has finally exhaled. The dwarves say the waters sing again, though none can agree on the melody.
In Rivendell, scholars gather to debate one final question. Did the ring truly die or merely sleep in another form, waiting for a world foolish enough to forge it anew? Even Gandalf smiles at that, saying softly, "All endings are beginnings wearing masks." You step away from the firelight, into the cool breath of the world reborn, and watch Frodo sail west across the sea, the last keeper of the curse departing with the last echo of the age. Sam stands on the shore, silent, the wind brushing his face like a farewell. The stars above are clear again, their light steady as the eyes of a patient god. Somewhere in the reeds by the Anduin, new life stirs. Silver fish darting through calm currents, dragonflies tracing rings in the air. The world has learned to breathe again.
The campfire beside you crackles low, its glow dimming into embers that pulse like a heartbeat before surrendering to darkness. You breathe in deeply, the air rich with life, and for the first time in this long tale, there is no voice left whispering from the gold. Only the sound of the river, eternal and kind, washing all things clean. The stars above flicker once, steady, patient and everlasting. You close your eyes. The story of Isildur's cursed legacy ends not with thunder, but with the quiet grace of water finding its way home. And if you listen long enough, you might just hear it say, soft as a lullaby, that even the deepest wounds of power can be healed, drop by drop, under the light of peace.